Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the greatest show on YouTube, the Michael Sisco show, and we are giving David Patrick Harry from the Church of the Eternal Logos the great privilege of coming on this illustrious program. So, welcome, Pat. As I set up the entropy, because as an illustrious host, I have a producing staff to do that for me.
Well, thank you for having me on, brother. I appreciate it. Last time, or I think we've been online a couple times. One was with the campaign you were working with previously, and then
Don't mention it. Don't mention it.
and then you came on my channel actually when you were launching this channel. So it's good to see that this illustrious and honorable show is alive and thriving online.
Sorry, my boomer tech moment that happens at the beginning of every show. But hey, looks like we got some people in the chats already. What's up, Anna? What's up? Oh, there's you, Micah. So, but yeah, it's you. I appreciate that, Uber. I've always had a podcast, but I relaunched as a live stream, and so it was good to kind of have that chance to come on your show and give me a little bit of a boost beforehand. So I appreciate that, sir.
Hey, no problem, brother. You always got to promote fellow Orthodox content creators. We're far and few between, so no problem.
We're growing. I feel like we're growing.
We are growing. No, I feel like there's a lot of energy online for Orthodoxy right now. And so, I'm noted as a sort of psychedelic guy that's turned to Orthodoxy. And so it's interesting how many people reach out that are kind of, have been embedded within the New Age worldview, the psychedelic worldview, spiritual, not religious, all that stuff. And I don't know. It feels to me like we are thriving. And then with the sort of apologetics with the Catholics and everything and the Protestants, I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of energy behind Orthodoxy right now.
Hey, we got to be nice to the Catholics, though. I got
No, I got Catholic friends. That's why my channel really doesn't get into interdenominational conflicts and arguments. I leave that for people well more versed in that stuff, like Dyer. He can wax way more poetically on Thomistic theology and the problems with Catholicism or Protestantism. I had him on for my show to talk about Protestantism and Reformed theology. And basically all I did was just ask him a question and he would go 30 minutes just destroying whatever it was. It's really impressive to hear that guy talk about stuff.
Oh,
so
whoa now. We have viewers in Cary, North Carolina. Look at that.
Whoa, there we go.
And Anna says you are confirmed ex-Illuminati.
Yeah, confirmed. Yep. Confirmed.
Well, hey, that's a good segue, actually. I did write questions. I normally prep my guests, but because you replaced a guest that had to cancel, I didn't get to prep you. So
there's no need for prep.
I get to catch you off guard. Oh, by the way, well, totally ruining my segue, but I use your video with Dyer on the Solo Scriptura all the time.
Oh, thanks, man.
So instead of arguing with prots, I'm just like, video link.
Yep.
So, and I tell other people to do that. So
yeah, I actually need to cut more up of that video because every single question I asked, my original goal was to cut up and put into a quick video. But now that you mentioned that you actually use that for apologetical purposes, I'm going to go through tomorrow and cut up every single question asked to Dyer. Because I think I still have like 5 more questions that are left I haven't cut up yet, but that dude is incredible.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? Your show's good too. So
I appreciate that. I do what I can.
I view you both as resources at this point. So just go on the channel, find a weird topic. Whether it's you like theological or what some would call esoteric of nature, maybe even conspiracy theory level with Dyer. You two are the go-to channels for sure.
I appreciate that.
But I did come on your show before, and we got to talk about like how I came to Orthodoxy and stuff. I don't want to spend too much time, but can you kind of give a, just in case some of my viewers aren't your fans already, I doubt, but how did you come to Orthodoxy, and then how did that eventually lead to your channel?
So I was deeply embedded in the psychedelic community and the sort of new age stuff. So I grew up Methodist. My family was Methodist. I went to a small college after high school to play basketball, had a heart murmur. I was really into athletics during high school and stuff like that. And then kind of rededicated my life to Christ, right? After having this heart murmur, and I couldn't play basketball that season, and I transferred back home to a school in Indianapolis. I took this class on the historicity of the Bibles, the history of the Bible, academic course. Again, I'm this very naive, ignorant, if you will, Protestant Christian who thinks that I'm going to rededicate my life to Christ. And I take this course and I learn about the Epic of Gilgamesh and the similarities with the Noah story and the multiplicity of authorship theory regarding New Testament scripture and all this different stuff. And it really kind of shook my faith, really took me out of, the validity of Christianity, and then started really get into biology, became a biologist, really devoted myself to academia. And I just loved this new version of myself where I was reading and just really putting all the efforts in regards to like getting better at academic or athletics. I just focused that on academics. And eventually I took a intro to world religions course, became very enamored with, became very enamored with like East Asian tradition. So very much starts to Taoism and Buddhism, and therefore began to study Mandarin Chinese. Did 3 years of Mandarin Chinese, did 2 summers in southern China at a university called Zhongshan Daxue or Sun Yat-sen University in the Guangdong province, and traveled China, traveled East Asia, decided that I definitely wanted to go to grad school and I definitely wanted to study religion. But about that senior year of my undergraduate, really got into Alan Watts, Terence McKenna, Robert Anton Wilson, Timothy Leary, and started to take LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, getting into that stuff, MDMA. And that set me on a whole trajectory. So then I fast forward, go to my master's degree at the University of Illinois, where I studied Gnosticism and early Christianity, focused on some Koine Greek was the language that I chose. And then I also did shamanistic focus within Native American traditions because I was deeply embedded within psychedelics, created this YouTube channel called Fractal Universe. And it really was just a promotion of psychedelics. It wasn't me in front of the camera. Mostly it was me creating graphics of Terence McKenna, Robert Anton Wilson, Alan Watts, talking about their worldviews, taking snippets from lectures, and then making really interesting visuals for it. So did that. It began to grow, and I knew that I wanted to be a professor. This was the goal when I was a senior and the undergraduate. I knew I wanted to be a professor. So do the master's degree, eventually get into a PhD program in Berkeley, California. And I decided I didn't want to do a historical scholarship, which is what I was doing in my master's degree regarding early Christianity. I want to do something contemporary. I want to do something that's alive and moving right now. I don't want to read a bunch of manuscripts and then talk about it. So I focused on New Age, spiritual but not religious, because in 2017 was the first time any particular demographic surpassed what we would call Protestant Christianity in America. So in 2017, people who identified as none, meaning a Pew Research Center asked you, what religious identity do you identify with? Islam, Buddhism, Christian, or Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, all this stuff, or none of the above, which would include agnostic, atheist, or spiritual but not religious. That none category became the number one demographic within the United States. So they are larger than the Protestant sects of people who they identify, and they're larger than the Catholics in America. That occurred in 2017. So I wanted to study them. I go to California. I focus my first semester of research on a book called The Psychedelic Gospels, which was really looking at this theory. And in fact, this author, Dr. Jerry Brown, is on my PhD committee, because now what my research is about is the use of psychedelics and what I call psychedelic esotericism or psychedelic spirituality as its own new religious movement. that first semester, I read his book, was kind of blown away by it, of all these different images and frescoes and paintings that depict what appears to be psychedelic mushrooms within Christian tradition. For that semester, I do my own research regarding it, and I see that it's a really historical contextualized phenomenon that between the 900s and the 1400s, all these frescoes appear. And so when I did my own research, I see a lot of it has tied to what I believe the Cathars, which was a heretical group in regards to Christianity. They were extinguished in the Inquisition by the Catholics, but they had gone to the Holy Land during the Crusades and encountered the Manichaeans, Gnostic theology. And Manichaeanism is known for their relationship to psychedelic mushrooms. So having done all that, then I thought, geez, you know what? I know that Slavic languages, particularly Russian, but all Slavic languages have an affinity, their cultures and languages have an affinity towards mushrooms. I bet that if I take a class on Eastern Orthodoxy, I'll find evidence of psychedelic mushrooms as well. And so this was my thought, because there was a book by R. Gordon Wasson. He's kind of the first person in Life magazine to write an article about Maria Sabina. Yeah.
So are you about to tell me that mushrooms brought you to orthodoxy?
No. Well, the investigation of them in their relationship to Christianity, because at the time I'm still not a Christian. So even though I'm in Berkeley, the Trump phenomenon is certainly moving the pendulum to the right, and it's certainly working in my life. But again, we see this working all across sort of American culture, really across global culture right now, is a return back to tradition in a variety of different forms. And Trump is really just a sort of cultural lightning rod, in that this pendulum has stopped moving to the left, and now it's going to start moving to the right. But it was this investigation in this book, yes, about psychedelic mushrooms, and then knowing that R. Gordon Wasson and his wife, Valentina Pavlovna, they wrote a book. She was Russian, and so they wrote a book on Russian language and how many words there are for mushrooms. So in English, for example, we have fungus, mushroom, and toadstool. We have 3 words to describe all the variety of species of mushrooms, where in Slavic languages, they have hundreds of words. They have words for different species. It's way more nuanced. And so knowing this, and being embedded within that psychedelic worldview, I thought, geez, and then at the time I was with a Ukrainian girl who was culturally Orthodox. She wasn't really Orthodox, but culturally Orthodox. So I was aware of it. And so I wanted to look more into it. And I took a class on Eastern Orthodox theology that second semester. And that is what began to really change the trajectory of my worldview, of my thoughts. And that's when I encountered what I call logos theology. And it was a slow process. So it wasn't like immediately one day I became Orthodox, but learning more and more about energy essence distinction, logos logoid distinction, this concept of logos, and then seeing how it played out. This concept of logos playing itself out within the Greek philosophical tradition, from Heraclitus to Plato to the Stoics to, eventually John the theologian in the Gospel of John and Arche and Hologos, that I was like, oh, geez, something is really interesting here. So months go by. This is the summer of probably 2018. I begin going to Orthodox churches. And then once you go into, I was in the Bay Area, San Francisco. So Holy Virgin Cathedral, where John of Shanghai, his body lays, absolutely astounding how beautiful that church is. And so seeing the aesthetics, seeing the beauty, again, which sort of resonated with that sort of psychedelic inner vision of myself, it was like, wow, I really like something's going on with Orthodox. It connects with me intellectually. I really like the aesthetics. And when I go to the liturgy, I like it. I'm going to keep doing this. And then just a few months later, really, that's when I devoted my life to Christ. Technically, it was like 11/11/18. That is when I knew that I knew so much about the church already, not that like a lot, but enough that it was so true. I couldn't reject it anymore. I couldn't deny it. And because of that, now I began to change the way I live my life. I began to change my thought processes, what I think. And I started going to church regularly, about every Sunday. Then fast forward, eventually I moved back to Indiana. And that's when I joined my parish at St. Mary of Egypt, and have been going every Sunday since. And that's when in August of 2019, so a year and 2 months ago, I went full time on Church of the Eternal Logos. So I wanted to talk about my thoughts, because being in Berkeley, being at the university, being at the highest echelon of like academia, if you will, I realized that the worldview that I now believe in is not supported, and there's going to be no place for me within the university structure. So I needed to find a new way forward. And I figured, you know what I'm going to do? I had been watching a lot of Jay Dyer. I had been watching a lot of Primal Edge Health, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to go build an online following, because I believed in myself that I could make content. And I'd already done a YouTube channel. Just I wasn't in front of the camera talking about my own ideas, but I feel like I was at a point where I was very confident in my abilities to articulate ideas. So I went full time in August of 2019, talking about logos and Orthodox apologetics, Christian apologetics, why orthodoxy is true, and I haven't stopped since, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Not gonna stop. And Greek named woman, God bless you, she says. Iona, I don't say Greek names because I fancy the Russians. No offense, but JK, just kidding, just kidding. Scoochbox says, yes, mushrooms are huge in Russian culture. I remember going mushroom picking in Russian forests with my orphanage. My first bout of food poisoning was some badly pickled mushrooms.
See, I am not making it up. I told you. And the language. So when you look at Slavic languages, like they have so many more words for mushrooms. And also when you then from a psychedelic perspective, you look at Siberian shamanism, and that's where the red and white mushroom was called the Amanita muscaria mushroom, Toad from Mario Kart, all that stuff, that red and white, that iconic mushroom. That's what that shamanistic tradition uses for their psychedelic voyaging. And so it's like, well, they're doing it in Siberia. I bet there's traditions within, more mainland Russia, but I never found any mushrooms in Orthodoxy, and I don't think I ever will. Thank God. No, Orthodoxy is the one true religion on the planet.
Yeah, I guess their energy directed at mushrooms stayed within the realm of language. So, Anna says, so many of us came through occultism to get to the real truth, which is true. I went through a similar stage. I myself went through traditional witchcraft and Freemasonry and Western esoteric occultism, all that stuff. So thank God we're not in that anymore.
Right. No, I was big into Hermeticism, and I had even dabbled in some sort of ritual magic. And when that first semester when I moved to Berkeley, I actually went to what's called a Gnostic Mass. And so this is like a ritual form of Thelema. So Thelema is the magical tradition that is created by Aleister Crowley. And basically it's an inversion of a Catholic Mass. And I didn't like the way it felt, And so that was actually one of the things that began to get me out of magic. Because before, magic was like making sigils, trying to do things, learning about it, the wizard archetype, all this different stuff. It was like a cool thing. It was an intellectual thing. It was edgy. But when I actually went to rituals, something really bothered me about it. And in the Bay Area, it's the most prominent form of spirituality is magic, whether that be Thelema, various forms of occultism, Satanism, outright Satanism, whatever it is.
There's a question that just popped in my head. Do you see a connection between any of the various, I guess, occult / esoteric ideologies and modern progressivism or a manifestation in politics somehow?
Yeah. I see, well, one, at a basic level, I see them both in opposition to the patriarchy. So on my channel, I've talked a lot about this concept that Jacques Derrida was he was a very famous French intellectual in the 1960s, 70s. And in his famous book, Grammatology, he talked about the central pillar of Christianity is what he called foul logocentrism. So it's the privileging of the masculine principle, and then it's the presuppositions of logos theology or logos, which would lead to language being able to describe truth. That language can reflect reality. Again, we believe God spoke the world into existence. So there's all these things: objective reality, objective truth. All these things are embedded with this within this concept of logos, coming from the Greek philosophical tradition, but fully articulated within orthodoxy. That that magic itself is sort of in opposition too. So when you see magic in the promotion of feminism, which I think is another presupposition of the left, or what you're calling progressive politics, the animosity towards the masculine principle, or even what we're seeing, the animosity towards white men, because white men embody, if they're traditional, embody the principles and characteristics that they hate, that are rooted within that phallogocentric principle. So then magic itself, like the Terence McKenna's and stuff, they're always promoting feminism or feminist ideas, goddess theory, multiplicity of spirits, which then I see the connection between magic and the progressive movement is relativism at an epistemological level, and the feminism, and then like a movement towards collectivism. And not like traditional, like I think good forms. There are good forms of collectivism, obviously, but I think that the feminist stuff, because as soon as you worship creation, you're going to lead towards a goddess worldview, I believe.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think with the collectivist stuff, that tends towards more emphasis on like it's a hyper materialistic version that you would find in like Marxism, or maybe even anarcho-communism, for instance.
Right.
That's more my side of this stuff. Jimmy, is there some magic and rituals that are linked to stuff the Bible warns against because it actually summons demons?
I missed that. Let me check real quick. Is there some magic and rituals that are linked to stuff that the Bible warns because it's actually summons? Yeah. So, like if you want to get into the theories of magic, magic is a wide variety. There's so many forms of magic, but as Christians, we absolutely believe magic is real. So I think that's where some people they think, oh well, I'm Christian, I don't believe in that magical stuff. Well, like the Christian worldview, if you take it seriously, absolutely believes in all that stuff. We, simony, the whole there's a man in the Acts called Simon Magus that was all about magic, and that we absolutely believe that you can summon demons and you can do a variety of things. You can do superhuman feats by allowing them to possess you, embody them. You can make symbols and sigils that affect people's psychology. And this is what I think then when we look at corporate symbols and stuff like that, you look at the Starbucks logo of the Syrian, right, which is tied to Greek mythology, that sort of mermaid character that would lure men in. They'd be sailing at night and they'd see this beautiful woman with a beautiful voice, and she would lure them in. She'd be laying on a rock, right, underneath the moonlight. And then she would kill them or take their money and kill them. And so why is Starbucks using that as a symbol? Well, to me, this is all tied back to what is sigil magic and how you actually create symbols that are embedded with meaning. And then you can put that in people's minds and they're affected by it, whether they know it or not. And so when you do sigil magic, what you do is you'd say, like my highest wish, it has to be something fairly reasonable, but say like, I want $1,000 extra at the end of this month. One way to do it is you write that sentence out. You'd mark out all the vowels, because vowels are phonetic. They don't actually contain meaning. This is why like the Hebrew language is all consonants. So meaning and words are contained within the consonants. Then you would just mark out all the consonants that repeat. Now you'd have somewhere between 12 and 20 consonants. Now you create a symbol using those consonants that looks nothing like the letters. And you can make it anything you want. Now that entire wish is embedded within that symbol. And then you can charge that symbol. And one way is to get more people to look at it. The magical concept is that the more people who look at your symbol give it energy, and therefore it's more likely that whatever your desire is going to come to fruition. And I think that's what a lot of these corporate logos are. They're manipulations of sigil magic.
I think, hey, we're like way off my planned topic, but that's okay. It's interesting. So I remember, like, I was involved in Rosicrucianism too. But one of the common things between like all occultism, including some of the like folk magic, it was all premised on like Neoplatoism, like that an idea is more real than the matter. Therefore,
Right.
you can manipulate the matter with your mental energies. Like it was all premised on Plato, basically. Whereas I think what do you I still kind of like, I believe that even that stuff is real, and it's not necessarily all strictly from demonic influence. But it's a sin to do it, which is like the conclusion I came to before I came to orthodoxy, because you're basically, it's the opposite of orthodox humility, where it's not my will but thy will.
Right.
But with witchcraft or magic of any sort, you're basically asserting your will onto creation in a way that it's really not meant to.
Right.
What's your thoughts on that?
I agree with you 100% that is the whole point of magic. And that's why Hermeticism actually says that man is the brother of God, and that their cosmology is that God created creation, or they take a very Neoplatonic schematic that God is like the one, and they live in a sort of panpsychism that everything is mind. But they would say that, well, God made creation to about 95% completion, and therefore it's on man to complete creation from there on, because we're the brother of God. And therefore to assume that sort of magus state, that wizard state, that if you watch Lord of the Rings, how they can affect nature, right? Nature will work on their side, that again their will can be implemented, as you said, through creation. And that is the ultimate sin. That is why Lucifer fell from heaven in the first place, is that evil didn't exist until Lucifer, with his free will, being made in the image, having personhood, chose that he wanted to usurp God and be God. And by doing that, he was cast down with his minions to the realm in which he already had dominion over, the created realm. And he's still here, and his spirits are still here. And their whole point, so whether it be Adam and Eve, right, eating from the tree of knowledge, was to get Eve to again be like God, right, to again assert her will over his will. And as orthodoxy teaches, that it wasn't that the tree of knowledge was bad. It was that we were in an infantile state. So you don't feed steak to an infant, just like you don't feed the tree of knowledge to somebody in a sort of infant state of human nature and human development. So that sent us down a very dark road called the fall of human nature. And so now that's what I see with everything. So you want to connect that back with politics. The whole progressive left assumes that they have the authority to redefine God's creation. Look at the infinite number of genders, right? Clearly there's male and female, and that's it. You're either one or the other. It's XX or XY. And the idea that, no, it's actually a performative gender theory, that, tomorrow I can dress in a skirt and, put on a wig and talk with a lisp, and now I'm a woman. And so that isn't true. And that's a fantasy world. But that is the idea that somehow man can redefine creation, which is rooted in really a Luciferian, a satanic concept, a magical concept, that man is God.
Yeah, I think the only retort that I get that is somewhat convincing is, oh well, you're inflicting your will when you like make a tool or use technology. So what would you say is the primary difference between like a monotonous
magic and tool making?
Yeah, like technology and magic. What's the difference?
Well, I believe the incarnated Logos was a carpenter. And so the concept of building is essential to what man is supposed to do. And so we are supposed to build. So in regards to tools and the ability to create and build, that to me is that's in its own category, as opposed to this sort of redefining of obvious categories within the world, like gender and sex, like this is what communism is. That's why it has to be atheistic. The state becomes God. I just did a video on Emil Durkheim, the father of sociology, and he has a concept, because he was a Jewish atheist secularist scholar of the late 19th and early 20th century, that society was God. He believed, again, really wrapped up in sort of psychological theory at the time with Jung and Freud, that society, he believed in collective consciousness, and that society was conscious, and it was like the ultimate form of consciousness, and that it was God. And that then society was creating human beings, in various ways, like our mental categories, our representations, our symbol use. But that as a worldview, that really falls apart. But the idea that man can redefine things, that he has ultimate authority, is different from living in a biblical worldview and then using hammers and nails and screwdrivers to build a structure to house your animals, to build a place to keep your family, right, to find a wife that's going to live with you and promote Christian values and raise children the right way. So Jesus used a hammer, I'm sure, as a carpenter. So I'm cool with using hammers and tools. I'm just not cool with the redefining of obvious categories in creation itself, and man, this idea of becoming God or being God or having ultimate authority.
Yeah, I think as like one good way to think of it, especially when it comes to like simple spell casting or whatever, it's like God puts limits on a lot of things that are good. So like using technology or being innovative, that's within the bounds that we've been given, much in the same way that like marital intimacy is within the bounds that we've been given. Fornication is outside of those bounds. I would think that magic and spellcraft and that type of stuff would be outside of the bounds that we've been given, with enforced when putting our will towards some sort of goal, materialistic goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the scriptures make that pretty clear, especially
Right.
when you, I can't remember the passage, but there's the example with in the Old Testament with Saul. I think it was the prophet. What was his name? Samuel. Like, hey, don't go see the witches. Don't do that.
Right. There definitely are, and that's
Yeah.
No,
But
go ahead. I'm sorry.
looks like we just have some comments cranking out.
Let's hear it.
Rothi, the Enlightenment exchanged the concept of Christ being the center of society with man being the center of society. This is auto-occultic. That's true. That is
Yeah, I
true.
agree. That's where we get humanism. I totally agree with that concept. That part of the problem, we really start to see it with the Renaissance. So on my channel, I talked about the translation project with Marsilio Ficino and Cosimo de' Medici. We're talking about mid 15th century. So the Council of Florence, as the orthos out there are going to know, that's like 1430 something. But Gemistus Plethon, a Greek pagan, brought Plato from the east to the west during that council. And so Marsilio Ficino began to translate Plato. Well, eventually they also got Hermeticism. And so then we get this whole concept of what's called the Prisca Theologia, which is the one true theology that was really, you have to have Platonism, you have to have Jewish Kabbalah, you have to have Christianity, you have to have the Orphic hymns, and that somehow it's really the basis for perennialism, which then led to this concept of man being God, that's why we get Renaissance magic, and magic was so rampant during the Renaissance. And then so that's 1450 something, fast forward 67 years, and we get the Protestant Reformation of 1517. And then we have Martin Luther rejecting, well, not just him, but the whole Protestant theology, rejecting the aesthetics, the mysticism, the tradition of the Catholic Church. Again, the Catholic Church wasn't in a great position. So you can sympathize with why they would want to break away from the Catholic Church, but you also have to critique that they did it on a purely rationalistic basis. So the whole Protestant theology, we have the soul, it's all intellectual, it's all rationalistic. There is no mysticism in Protestant churches. That's why they look terrible. Their churches look horrendous. And
gay.
So because of that, they are absent of mysticism. So what fills that void? Well, in European culture, we get alchemy, we get Hermeticism, we get Rosicrucianism, we get Freemasonry, we get, the Hermetic Dawn, Golden Dawn, we get Thelema eventually, we get all. So what fills the mysticism within Northern Europe, because of the rejection of Catholicism, which still had a mystical quality to it, we get all these magical traditions. So then Northern Europe, you have Protestantism, which is hyper rationalistic and is not necessarily in favor of aesthetics. And then you have magic, which is going to give you the aesthetics, is going to give you that personal direct experience, right? Because Protestantism is so rationalistic, it doesn't have that experiential dimension, and that's why you eventually fast forward, you get Pentecostalism, which tries to then overcorrect the over rationalism of Protestantism with the over, now it's all about experience, and now there's no rationalism to it.
I tweeted this the other day that Pentecostalism is pagan spiritism LARPing as Christianity.
Yes. Yep.
And I grew up as Pentecostal, and then I got into witchcraft. So I literally know. I know. I absolutely know that to be true. Anna asked a very good question. Then we're gonna change subjects after this.
Okay.
How did you overcome the claims in that world that Christianity is new compared to their knowledge, that Christianity is just symbolism for their much older traditions and hidden knowledge?
Okay. So I'm trying to understand what exactly that question is asking. So how did I overcome the claims in that the world that Christianity is new compared to their knowledge that Christianity is just symbolism? So I often hear like the idea that a very common atheistic critique is that, well, Christianity is just a solar religion. Don't you know that, you worship on Sunday, that's the sun's day? Don't you know that the SON is the SUN? Don't you know that the 12 apostles are the 12 zodiacs? Don't you know that you look at the major holidays of Easter and Christmas, that these are all related to the summer solstice, the spring equinox for Easter, and then the winter solstice for Christmas, and that Christmas is on the 25th because on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, the sun doesn't move, right? And this is where we get the myth that God was dead for 3 days. Don't you guys know that? And it's like, yeah, I'm quite aware of that, but it's way deeper. And that's why I appreciate Jay Dyer's apologetic approach, because instead of looking, the analogy I like to use is how do you approach Christianity through a microscope or a telescope? And most people want to get into these really micro debates between things, and they're not looking at paradigms and presuppositions. And is your starting point even true? Right. And so that's why Jay Dyer's and the whole apologetic approach of the Transcendental Argument for God is so unique and so interesting, because it begins by asking, well, what do you assume to be true? And can you justify that? And so if a Christianity adopted symbolically what we would consider pagan elements, okay, what's your point? Like that doesn't do anything. That's not an argument. Yeah, we already know that. I mean, that's what Orthodoxy does, is it goes inside civilizations and then it sanctifies them. So that's the whole point, is for Orthodoxy to fuse the validity and the truth of Christ within pagan society. So yeah, they use pagan symbolism and things that people can relate. And how do we know that that's not, a accurate way symbolically to express the one true theology, which is Orthodox theology?
Yeah, exactly. I think we teach that all of the Christian religions had an element of truth that foreshadowed the fullness of truth, which is Orthodoxy. So
right.
Oh man, Jimmy says, well, hello, Lisa. I got some friends saying hi. Thank you for finally catching an episode. Thank you. You are very slow. Okay, we're gonna need you to watch every episode for now on to make up for it.
Lisa.
In fact, we're gonna need you to send a super chat through the entropy link in the description just to make up for it. Jimmy, man, David, Patrick, Harry serving up the truth bombs and dishing out the red pills. We always appreciate that. But when I was on your show, you did briefly mention an idea called homesteading, and since we know that we live in this dark pagan occult world, we obviously need to start doing things as traditionalist Christians to insulate ourselves, protect ourselves, and preserve a future for traditionalist Christians and our children. So no spinoffs there, nothing going on with that. But what is homesteading? What is it? Explain, sir.
Well, so this is something I've been advocating quite a bit lately on my channel, and I was already sort of moving in that direction pre-COVID, that the goal of any Christian man really should be trying to find a woman that has a similar reverence for God and wants to build a family. So right now, trying to find women that actually want to be wives and actually want to have children and want to do things the right way. And then building a homestead, building a sustainable way, basically going back to tradition, again, in a different way. We talk about going back to tradition, which way Western man is sort of the meme online. And then we talk about orthodoxy, or we talk about, getting married at a younger age or stuff like that, as opposed to sort of sexual hedonism so many people find themselves in. Again, most of us before orthodoxy were probably wrapped up in some sexual hedonistic a way to approach life. So the homestead movement is really getting back to what's real and not being dependent on cities. And so it's funny how, again, I think this online culture was already moving in that direction. And then COVID hits, and it just validates the necessity for people to take more responsibility of their lives, which means buying land. And that's what I'm interested in doing and trying to save up for, is to buy, for me, at least 4 to 6 acres, and then build a home. And so I've been advocating one of the cheaper ways to get a really nice structure up in regards to a home is a pole barn. And it's not like you're living in a barn full of animals or anything like that. Just Google pole barn homes. And I'm saying POLE, pole, because it's built with deep poles into the ground. It's actually more of a steady structure. But for $100,000, you can have just as much square footage as many houses for a fraction of the price. And it's just as nice, and it's a sturdier structure. So I'm interested in trying to get men to think long term, and how can you save up or get loans for $100,000 to $200,000 and basically get a plot of land, be able to grow all your own vegetables, have some freezers in the garage where you can have meat, whether you're buy half a cow, go hunting, kill some deer, have some venison. So you have your meat, you have your food right there, and you're self-sustainable. Do the homeschooling. Why would anybody, based on knowing the agenda of the public school, why would you put your kids there? This is what I couldn't understand with conservatives. They're so upset about the critical race theory. They're so upset about the homosexuality. They're so upset that they're teaching anal stimulation to like little boys in first grade. And then they're slamming their fist on the ground because public schools don't want to open. It's like, do you not see the contradiction already? And it's that people are so dependent upon cities that they don't want to take the real thing is that you have to take more responsibility for your own life, which means that growing your own food, it's called the barn. I like it. I like that. So taking more responsibility for your life, and also it's like, I don't want my wife to work. As a man, trying to figure out ways in which you can make enough money, or you can provide. And really, if you have a homestead, how much money do you need? If you already own the land, say you've already got, eventually you get the $200,000 or whatever, $100,000, $150,000. You get the land, you get the structure, and you own it. And now you're growing your own food, and you have freezers full of meat. How much money do you actually need to then continue that process moving forward? Because much of it is living off the land. So you really don't need that much money once you get it going. The problem is getting the thing going. It's going to cost some capital, but taking more responsibility of your life is what men need to do. And so men are too interested in being dependent on cities, which then, that's what the immunity shots and some of this stuff is coming, where they're precursors for you to even go anywhere, right? The whole mask stuff. I refuse to wear masks. It violates my conscience and how again, reading science, the masks do nothing. So to participate in that shows your submission to the world, to the fallen world in my mind. Again, some of us, we have to wear masks in certain circumstances. So I understand that. But the homestead movement is really getting back to tradition. How did people live in the Old Testament? How did people live in the New Testament? And it's like getting out of the cities where all the degeneracy is, getting out of the cities where all the centralized forms of power are, which is that's why the Catholic or the Orthodox Church has a synodal structure, not a papal structure, right? The centralization of power itself is wrong. That's why communism, socialism, the papacy, they're all taking the same form. That we need to build families, have multiple children, teach them biblical values, and grow your own food. And you do that, and I guarantee you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, and you're going to be more connected with God. And so that's what I try to get men to think about, start focusing on, start preparing for, making plans for, so that you can make it a 2, 3, 5-year goal where that is a reality. So in 5 years, you have your wife, you have your children, you have your homestead, and you have everything you need to survive.
Oops, not the one yes, Ray, they are taking care of us. Greek named woman, Joanna. We're going with Joanna. Where in America can you possibly have a homestead with drones that could track us anywhere? I actually kind of have a that I think is a longer term solution that we should get a little serious with. You're right she's kind of right to an extent if you try and do the Amish plan, but we have a regime so hostile, as absolutely hostile as say the Bolsheviks were, coupled with this AI and technology. There's no guarantee that they're just going to leave us alone.
Sure.
Even if we're so. I do think that and this is something that I kind of work on, which I'm actually, my book club that I started. I don't know if you saw that, but
I did not know you had a book club. You're such a.
I did. We're gonna. It's a book club that, it's LARPing as a book club. Let's get real, but There are things that we have to try and do to prepare for a situation like that. I think homesteading is certainly a part of it, but I don't necessarily know that it addresses the issue of what could possibly happen with a full-scale persecution that we see. So I do think that we need a multifaceted approach from the traditionalist community as a whole. We need to build coalitions as Orthodox people with say traditionalist Catholics, and we have to, because there's 65 million of them and only like 1 million of us in the U.S.
Right.
So, but we will grow and eventually we will crush them. I'm kidding. But no, there's a strategy. So check out the book club tab on saintsedwardmedia.com. You do that too, Pat. So
yeah. Can I respond to that point that Joanna was making? Please. Is that I think that the framing of that question is already putting the cart before the horse. That if you're worried about a drone knowing where you live, like, that's inevitable. Do you use the internet? Are you, if you're on social media, it shouldn't even be brought up because you're already inside the web. Not that it's not a good point. I don't mean to be offensive in any way, but my point is that homesteading is that you're right. We're you can get a shotgun and shoot down, the drone, but Amazon knows where you live. And even if you homestead, you're going to get mail. So the postal office knows where you live. The government knows where you live. There's no getting away from the government not knowing where you're at. That's not what I'm advocating for. I don't think that's possible, especially in the age of the 21st century with the age of technology. I'm advocating for because I think it's way more difficult to control people than people give the authorities credit for. That's why the COVID narrative is falling apart. That's why the moderates moving towards Trump. The censoring of the Hunter Biden laptop, right? They're not even allowing you to share. It's so much more difficult to control people that the authorities are going to be so concentrated on the cities that they don't have time. They're really gonna have to get that stuff in order before they can deal with people in Wyoming and South Dakota and Montana who live, very sparse and live off the land. So I agree with Joanna that, we can't stop the drones. We can't stop the military industrial complex if it turned on us. We have guns. I have an AR-15. I have a 9mm. That's not going to withstand a tank or like actual military force. So there's no winning that battle. Fortunately, much of those people are already going to agree with us. So really, it's about talking to people. It's really about convincing other people of living our lifestyle and becoming, not necessarily a homesteader, but just seeing truth, becoming better people. And we just need a threshold, right? We just need so many people to do it. And I think that the breakup of the United States is coming. You either have, and this is where I would align with Brother Augustine. He talked about this was a couple months ago, we either had 4 months or 4 years. And I totally agree with him that Trump is basically the last president. This next term, you basically have 4 years to get where you want to be when America begins to fall apart. And I'm just saying, plan on getting a homestead, plan on trying to find somebody to love, plan on trying to find somebody to raise children with, because then surround yourself with people you can trust to fight those drones, to fight that infrastructure, to fight the oligarchs. Because the only way we're going to do it is together. And again, if we are doing it right and we're repenting and we're praying, we have God on our side. And so we shouldn't be in fear. We should just we should be faithful and then just do what's right. And, and let God handle the rest. Let God's providence take care of the rest.
And that's why I started the St. Edward's Book Club. So totally just a book. I got books for that. We're gonna read our way out of this. So I really do have a plan. I'm just I can't put it all out on the YouTube.
Hey, you do what you need to do, brother.
Well, hey, you know what? You're part of it, whether you like it or not. Because
I'm part of your plan.
Yeah, you're at least part of my plan on June 12th in Argos, Indiana.
Hey, I look forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I really do. The
link is in the description, so I'll be.
For those of you who don't know, Mr. Sisco has organized an event in Indiana. So Brother Augustine, myself, Michael, potentially others, bigger names might be a part of it, but we're going to basically do what would be considered more of an academic conference in person for the internet, promoting traditionalist values, traditionalist Christian values with Catholics, with Orthodox. So I love the idea of taking what we're doing online and then moving that into reality and actually meeting people face to face, because that's where we really make this stuff happen. And I'm excited for it. I can't wait to meet you in person, to meet Brother Augustine in person, to meet fellow, maybe, I don't know who else, you may get some more people by then, but just to meet people in person. I haven't met any of the big names or people that promote Orthodoxy online. I haven't met any of them in person. I've met people who've watched me online in person. Some go to my church. But I look forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And I appreciate you for setting up an event like that. I wouldn't even know where to begin just because I've never done that sort of organizing. So using your skills to then move and advance our agenda forward, dude, God bless you. God bless what you're doing. I love it. I told you in a private message, man, I appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I did run a U.S. Senate campaign. So I'm working on one speaker. I don't want to say his name without until I get just a quick confirmation that I can go ahead and actually promote him. So But I'm also working on backups just in case. But there will be a big name as keynote. So the early bird tickets are on sale now. I don't know, maybe after early bird is when the big name drops, and then you have to pay $50. So
Right.
maybe you should go get your tickets now, and because then you at least get to see myself, Brother Augustine, and Pat here. So,
I will
which,
be there.
in my opinion, is worth at least $30. That's $10 for each of us, and
For sure.
um, but yes, somebody. What else is Anna
And
says
I
that.
really look forward to meeting the people who join. Go ahead.
Yeah, we need to reject extreme individualism, especially as Americans. We've
Yep.
been so poorly programmed. We need to stick together.
Amen to that.
Agreed. Oh, Anna's coming. Anna's coming to the Trad Forum, a huge Trad
Oh,
coffee hour. Oh, yes. Now I'm excited
excellent.
about my own forum now,
Hey,
Hey, hey.
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I don't even know what she looks like. I just know she's based. That's all I
Eh,
care
that-
about, That's all I know.
That's more important.
um, so what are some other ways that you think that we could intentionally build traditionalist Christian or even our Orthodox communities?
Well, building upon what Anna said, we definitely have to reject individualism. This is a post-Enlightenment idea. And so within Orthodoxy, there is a absolute distinction between, although again, sometimes we use these terms interchangeably given the common vernacular, but personhood as a theological concept is very different from individualism. Individualism is a post-Enlightenment, very atomized idea that every individual is equal to every other individual, which from an Orthodox perspective, again, our theology is personhood, operations, essence, that every person is actually unique and individual. But the individualism that America is rampant with leads to things like consumerism, leads to a worldview where you think you are God. That's why the New Age and magical ideas and spiritual, not religious, it's so rampant within Western societies because of that individualism. So I totally agree with Anna. And so I think what we need to do is start just building more connections. Like what we're doing right now, what we're doing online, what we're doing with our, the conference or forum that you're putting on. I would like, ideally, again, I think maybe setting longer term goals. I always advocate for people to think 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, and then so like make plans, and because that gives you direction, to start living in similar areas. Not that we all can, because some of us can't, but at least we can start being more active online and begin reaching out and building friendships, building connections with people, and find people in your area. If you're Orthodox, go to an Orthodox church. You're not Orthodox if you're not going to an Orthodox church. Like there's so many people online that have their Orthodox cross. They want to get in theological debates online. And then you ask them what church they go to, and like, oh, I don't go. And it's like, dude, shut up. Like, what are you doing? Go to church, find other people, and begin to build a network. We have to begin to network with each other. And that's why, again, what you're doing with the forum, we're actually meeting in person. I think that is so important. That's what we need to do. We need to start meeting in person, building communities. Like, for example, I know somebody at my church that just left, and he was in talks with like 6 other Orthodox people he had met online and built friends with over time. And they pulled their money together and bought like multiple acres of land. And then they're going to build separately on that land. And I think that's an idea. I'm not suggesting everybody to do that, but that's another idea to move forward in society right now. But finding the others, finding other people that think like you, building networks, building friendships, I think is essential. Eventually, again, who knows what's going to happen politically? So we could say, oh, well, we need to get more Orthodox political candidates.
For
That
those
would work.
listening on the podcast, Brother Augustine, simple. We retake the Hagia Sophia and then all move inside of it.
Yeah, I like. Shout out to Brother Augustine. He does. I really like his streams. He does good work. Smart guy.
Yeah. I had him on Sunday evening. So
Oh, okay. So he's
good.
a 2-time returning guest.
Yeah. He wrote a nice poetry book called Theopoetica, and it was
Is that what you were reading?
no, I'm actually reading the book that he suggested because I
Give the people a glance. What is it?
how to
Poetry.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about dabbling back in. I used to play around with it as a hobby, so I'm thinking about dabbling myself since I write quite often. I'm like, well, why don't I give poetry a shot too? So we'll see how that goes.
I love that, man. Growing skill sets, like that's what we need. You know, we need men to be pushing themselves and gaining new skills, and you know, yeah. So all the power to you. I need to read that. Right now I feel I'm so busy with my life that I don't have time to do anything, but that's probably just an excuse.
I think we have a question, Micah here. What is the official process for context? I think Micah is an inquirer. So what is the official process for a community to raise a church, find a priest, extend or found a new parish? I think that varies based on the I guess for founding a parish that would vary based on the jurisdiction, but basically reach out to a bishop as right here, Basil P. Reach out to a bishop, get so many families together and pledges for donations, and you can start a mission parish that way. I know roll call is pretty easy if you guys just one person really take charge of leading, like say, just the Vespers service, for instance, or matins. You can do a reader's matins or Vespers, and then eventually, maybe the bishop will start sending a priest your way once a month or whatever. Then you have an official mission started. So every week you'll have your small like reader service, and then once a month you'll get a priest, and then eventually you'll get so big that you'll be a real parish and have liturgy every week. So that's kind of how that. Don't ask me how I know. I thought about doing it, came close. So, but most important question of the night, Pat, will you move to when I build the trad state, Byzantine and miniature in West Virginia? You coming, man?
I'm actually interested in West Virginia. I'm interested in a few places in regards to looking for land. I've been looking at Tennessee. I've looked at Missouri. I've looked at West Virginia. I've looked at Wyoming, South Dakota, Montana. Those are basically all the states. I've looked at Idaho. I see a lot of the Californians moving into Idaho.
The land's expensive now already.
I know.
Idaho, like I'm going to West Virginia after Thanksgiving. So
I've been looking at Wyoming. I saw a great deal for like 40 some acres for like $29,000. I was like, oh my gosh, if I could just go visit and see if that land is, if it had flowing water, if it had a stream on that property, I'd buy it immediately.
Yeah. Well, I love West Virginia, and as Rated Musician points out, there's a monastery, and I think he's talking about Holy Cross Hermitage, which is honestly like the holiest place in the United States I've ever been to. I highly recommend everyone visit Holy Cross Hermitage.
I've not been there.
It's worth the drive. I think you're probably, how far away are you from how far are you from Kentucky?
Well, I am just about 30 minutes south of Indianapolis, so I can get to Kentucky. I can get to Louisville in an hour.
So you're probably only like 3 hours away, maybe max, from Holy Cross Hermitage.
Is it right next to it? So it's
south. It's the
Virginia.
Yeah, southwest of West Virginia, base.
Okay, it'd probably be about 3 to 4 hours, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah,
My geography.
I'd like to check out. I saw there's a monastery. There's a Serbian Orthodox monastery in northern Indiana near South End. I want to check out. I haven't checked out that yet. And I've been hearing. I've met with multiple people or talked to multiple people that have been to St. Anthony's in Arizona, and they're big fans of that as well. Have you been out there?
I have not, but at some point I will check out an Athonite monastery. I'm more. Let's just say I prefer the Russian bent a little more.
I can understand that.
I respect the Athonites. Just no further comment. No further comment. But Western Rite. I don't know what this guy. I don't care so much. Yeah, Holy Cross Hermitage, but Western Rite Orthodoxy, just so you know, is the true faith within the true faith. I just felt like triggering some whoever sees that out there is gonna be like ecumenism.
Yeah.
So
you're trolling your ortho bros.
I like the Western Rite, and a lot of I think there's a misperception that they let me just say the most based in red pilled people that you will find in American Orthodoxy are either in a ROCOR parish or a Western Rite in either Antioch or ROCOR.
Right.
So ROCOR also has Western Rite as well. Ray the musician says clip that. Somebody should. That would be funny. That'll go around everywhere.
No, what I really appreciate about the ROCOR churches is they haven't put up with this mask nonsense. And to be honest, that's been one of my frustrations with my hierarchy. I'm in an Antiochian North American parish, and I really loved my priest. He just retired, but he had a similar worldview as me regarding a lot of this COVID stuff. It's just unfortunate that the Metropolitan has put out stuff telling people that they should wear masks and do, and be careful, social distance. And it just really rubs me the wrong way as Orthodox.
Yeah, well, I think it's been, even with ROCOR, it's parish by parish.
Okay.
But if it makes you feel any better about Antioch, one of the I'm not going to say what parish because I don't want to get them in trouble, but I do know of an Antiochian parish that is a complete rebel parish. They also happen to be Western Rite. I know of some rebel ROCORs, but Joanna, why do you prefer Russian? Just curious. I don't know if I want to get into that. I can briefly say jurisdictionally, which doesn't apply to the Athonite monasteries. They tend to be a little more progressive, emphasize Greek. I think they emphasize things that are not necessarily Orthodox more than you would find, more of an emphasis on ethnicity than you would find in a Russian ROCOR parish, for instance. It happens in ROCOR too, but that's just my main criticism. I don't just there are exceptions to everything. Athonite monasteries are definitely an exception to that, but I also have some criticisms of them that I don't want to get into as well. But anyways, on to lighter subjects. We love all of our Orthodox churches. We love them all.
And our Orthodox brothers and sisters. I just
but we particularly love Western Rite. It's just you're like, get me off this. Get me off of this.
It's all good, man.
Oh, Ray the musician. He's trying to wait. Not that way. He's trying to say that they're gay. How dare you? That's not what I'm saying. Not what I'm saying at all. Not what I'm saying at all. But anyways, I think we've pretty much covered everything. But before we go, Pat, what is your favorite book? Favorite book? Gotta make one selection for reading recommendation for the audience. It cannot be the Bible.
Okay. Okay. I would say one of my go-to when I talk to people is on the Cosmic Mystery of Jesus Christ. So it's a popular patristic series. It's Saint Maximus the Confessor. This was very important for me when getting into Orthodoxy. He talks a lot about energy essence. Logos logoi is he talks quite a bit about. But I love that book. I tell people to get that book. It's not very expensive, for like $14, $16. Unfortunately, probably use Amazon. None of us want to support Amazon, but if you're tight and money's tight and you want to get your best deal, it's not that expensive. And I think it's a great book. Now, I have got some feedback from people I've recommended it to. They said, I try to read that. I don't know what he's saying. So it's not necessarily for everyone.
It's honestly it's probably one of my favorite of the patristics collection.
Yeah, the popular patristic series. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Jared Holt also is now reading it as well, as we have a picture of him. I don't know. Did you see the picture of Jared Holt?
I did. Yeah, I think you shared it on Twitter and I saw it. Well, I've read these other ones. Of course, the famous On the Incarnation. In fact, I help with a Zoom course on my church. So we've been reading through this one together. It's to help promote theology. So we teach, Subdeacon Mark leads it, gentleman who's been on my YouTube channel before. And I just help put the Zoom on, and then I talk and stuff like that. And then On the Unity of Christ by St. Cyril of Alexandria is another one I have. But in regards to, I love Gregory Palamas. So if you're interested in the energy essence distinction, get you some Palamas. If you're trying to figure out, well, what is the foundational difference between Orthodoxy and the way they approach their theology and Catholicism, you can't do much better than God, History, and Dialectic with Joseph P. Farrell. Again, you're going to have a little bit of a background. You're diving into deep waters if you don't know anything about philosophy or theology or the history of European thought. But if you feel like you're up to the challenge, I always recommend that book to people because it highlights the problem. So when Dyer's always talking about dialectics, that's what it's highlighting, how the Latin West really built and continued upon the Greek philosophical tradition, where us as Orthodox, our theology is always collapsing these dialectics, right? There is no dialectic between life and death. Christ collapsed that. There is no dialectic between God and man. The incarnation in Christ collapses that. So there's, materiality, the non-material and the physical. Christ collapsed that. Our theology is all about collapsing these dialectics. And it's really, for me, beautiful once you're able to see that within Orthodoxy and Orthodox theology. But again, it's not for everyone. So maybe you want to begin with I'm sure Dyer's probably already done a video, 4 years ago on God, History, and Dialect. Maybe you want to start there and listen to his thoughts on it. But it's good stuff.
I don't read patristics anymore. I just watch Jay Dyer. So kidding. We did get some super chats. Awesome. We got Ray the musician, $3.
Heck yeah.
Ray, he said I don't know what he's referencing anymore because it's been a while. What David just summed up is the main thing that led me to go east instead of west. Whatever you're talking about, that's great.
Ray the musician, he follows me and we've spoke on Instagram and stuff. He's a good guy. Also, came to Orthodoxy. So nice. What's up, Ray? Glad that you're here. God bless you and the family.
And Daniel Boone says, keep it up.
Oh, fellas. Daniel Boone's
here. Yeah. So I guess that means that we can't stop, that we gotta keep it up. Anna says Patrick respects his audience and dresses well. Well, she's dissing me for not wearing a suit. Yeah, okay, Anna.
I'm not wearing a suit. It's called a sports jacket. It's just
I have those.
I'm still casual. I have a V-neck on. You got to go with the pocket square, though. I'm big on pocket squares. You have to accessorize. You know, I like Made by Jim Bob. He's been on my channel multiple times, and he always talks about men need to be meticulous. And I do agree with that. I think being a little bit more self-conscientious goes along, and it helps differentiate you in society right now.
Hey, you know what? I dress up to events, and when I did, I guess here's the thing. I was a campaign manager and I had every night an event in a suit. And so when I do my chill streams, you know, I have my nice library to make up for it, right? So sometimes, you know, I'm just not gonna put on a thing to sit in a basement and pretend like I'm in a library every night. So
inside that library that you're in, you need like what's the thing around the neck? Like, you know what I'm talking about? It's almost like I don't know, forget what it's called. Like I almost had the word. Like on Scooby-Doo, the guy who Fred, he has a red one around his neck. What are those called? Ascots? I think it's called an ascot.
She says, I didn't say suit and I didn't dish you, Michael. Well, I appreciate that, Anna. I appreciate that. You are like the
you do have a collar on. At least you have a collar. So you know, you're not totally informal.
Sure. I did make the mistake of wearing a green shirt with a green screen, which is the reason why it's like fuzzy all night. But it's like getting that electrical look. So
right.
not very smart, but whatever. Sometimes I'm like, have I worn this shirt before on a stream? And can't figure it out. I love your men's book room, Michael. Hope there's some cigars and whiskey. There is whiskey, but no cigars.
Do you like smoking cigars?
I do.
Yeah, me too.
I don't do it often, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
So.
And for men, there's actually really interesting, if you guys go online and search, very interesting studies that show a boost in T levels when you intake a little bit of nicotine, tobacco, stuff like that. So even if you look at like the most dangerous jobs in the world, mostly all occupied by, well, we don't have to say mostly, they all are occupied by men, and almost all of them have a sort of nicotine or tobacco fix, whether they chew, whether they smoke cigarettes or something. And so it's really interesting, the research that they found. Most writers have smoked in history. I'm not telling you to get a cigarette habit at all, but it is interesting that there is some research to show that nicotine actually helps, tobacco actually helps with T levels if you do it once in a while. And so tobacco being an organic form, cigars being an organic form of tobacco, don't inhale, but it's a good way to go.
All right. I am. What about pipes? Because I do actually pipe smoke too. I pipe is. Yeah. I usually use a corn pipe because it's cheap.
Yeah, I like pipes. But based on you guys can go look that stuff up and find it. But it is interesting, and it makes some sense, even just to think about it.
Yeah. Well, Joanna basically giving us the signal to end to wrap it up by asking, where can I follow you guys? Let's start with you.
Well, so on my Instagram is where I spend most of my like personal life. So like I like to go to the gym. In fact, I'll be starting here soon what I'm going to call Logos Fitness, building temples to house the spirit. And basically just talking about how men can build their bodies. So not that everybody needs to have, I'm interested in the aesthetic. I'm interested in bodybuilding. Some people are interested in powerlifting. These are different things. I'm interested in building a certain aesthetic that I like. So it's called the Classic Physique. So I'm going to be making videos here soon on how you go about building your body. How do you construct, it's sort of like a work of art. And then that's also sort of an aesthetic process, because you don't engage in certain foods, you don't engage in certain things to do the process. So there is a little bit of an orthodox spirituality involved as well. But Instagram is where I share a lot of my more regular life, and I shared that link in the chat. And then Church of the Eternal Logos is going to be where you're going to find a lot of my stuff online. So I stream and put out a lot of video content on there. And if you really like what I'm doing, you can go over to my website, davidpatrickcarey.com or churchoftheeternallogos.com. It doesn't matter. It takes you to the same place. And you can snoop around there. And if you want, you just can't get enough, you can become a website member for $5 and get exclusive content. So today, I filmed a video I got to edit and then put it up for members. I was talking about continuing my conversation on Emil Durkheim and about useful sociological theories that can be perspectives to be used to put on your academic or conceptual tool belt to look at society for 2020. And we talked about how society shapes people's psyches, what this concept that Durkheim had as the homo duplex, meaning that every man is both an individual and he's also a social being. And so just talking about that, those ideas, that is exclusive members content. So if you just can't get enough and you just want to get a little more, or you just want to support what I'm doing, go over to the website. Always appreciate that. Or just give a sub over at the YouTube, or give me a follow over on Instagram or Twitter. Man. But I don't like Twitter a whole lot. I'm not too engrossed in the ortho Twitter sphere. It has a different vibe for me. I like the ortho Instagram sphere.
What about Telegram?
I like Telegram. I share on Telegram fairly often.
And I am at real Michael Sisco on Telegram. I like Twitter because I'm in politics, so that's kind of where you are for politics.
For sure.
At Michael Sisco SC if you want to follow me there.
And you guys over on Gab. I'm over on Gab. I've been I need to post more on Gab. Posting on all the social medias time consuming. Most people don't realize that.
I'm not on Gab. I'm on Parler.
Everywhere. It takes time.
That's true. Where else am I? I'm on Parler. I don't even remember my handle. But the podcast, the Michael Sisco Show, it's on every podcasting app. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find it there. And then Saints Edward Media, as you probably know already. Well, she's watching on Facebook, so go subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Saints Edward Media. And we have an awesome website too, saintsedwardmedia.com. So we thank you for letting me plug my own stuff, Joanna. That's nice. But anyways, I appreciate you coming on, Pat. Hope to do it again. Maybe someday you can be a two-time returner and catch up with Brother Augustine.
If only I'd have such a privilege. I will continue my daily prayers and try to live a righteous life. And if God wills, it will be done.
Anna says Mossad Parlor. Probably. I did. I created an account on Parler, but I saw people have already been banned off Parler already. So, and the way that the apps, that's why I trust Gab. I know a lot of people aren't on Gab, but the fact that the social media companies are in opposition to Gab gives it a more legitimacy to me. And I like what Andrew Torba's trying to do over there. And so even if there might be a few bugs here or there, or people don't like it, like with his Gab news, like doing what Dan Bongino, he was trying to do as well. But what's the Rumble.
Well, Rumble as well. I'm on Rumble, but I have private videos over there. Are you on Rumble? Do you post these things over on Rumble?
Yeah, I actually have a good friend that, because it was just too much. I'm on like 20 platforms, so
right.
I was like,
can you? Mine too. I'm on Minds, Gab, Telegram.
Yeah.
Facebook is just me personally. So Facebook's really weird for me. I don't have a Church of the Eternal Logos Facebook stuff, and it's like I don't know. It's just a different sphere for me. It's like everybody I know in academia, and so it's a bunch of leftists and like people in school, and it's like I don't want them to hear me talking about demographic change and like how I feel about homosexuals.
I'm a king on Facebook, so I've been there forever. I have like 5,000 friends.
Nice.
I've kind of mastered the algorithms where I can say what I want to say without getting banned. So I'm still on Facebook, but
hey, their own. You got to do what you got to do.
Yep. So, anyways, thank you for coming on, everybody. Subscribe to his channel, Church of the Eternal Logos, and see you guys on Sunday with Sean Patrick Hazlitt. He's an author, so that's going to be an interesting conversation. Anyways, later.